Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andre and I'm your bookworm, and today we do not have a book review nor a book chat. We have a book recommendation video and the theme is nautical fantasy. And why this theme? Well, why not? First of all, there are plenty of good nautical fantasy books out there and I have read quite a few in the last few years, I would say. And so I just noticed the pattern and I was like, oh, why not create a video just recommending some, because some people really like the ship themes in books or just traveling through seas from island to island. So why not read some more about that? Of course, if you know books that I did not mention in this video, feel free to comment down below. Keep the list growing and just have more and more recommendations of nautical fantasy. So okay, the way this video is going to go, I have 4 recommendations. We're going to go from the ones that require the most commitment to the ones that require the least commitment. And for the first one, it requires a lot of commitment because this is a series that has been going on since 1997, and that is One Piece. Now I hope you understand why the big commitment thing. So One Piece is a manga that, as you can see, it is also an anime and a live action series, but we're focusing on the manga here. This is written by Eiichiro Oda. Like I mentioned, it's been published since 1997, and I mean, it's still being published. It is not done yet. This story follows Luffy and his crew who want to be pirates, and Luffy in specific wants to reach the One Piece, which is this treasure that the last king of pirates left for the next generation of pirates. And so him and his crew just go through adventures in the sea in the Grand Line, which is this stripe in the sea where different islands are, and they have to go through the islands until they finally find the One Piece. This is an amazing manga. It might seem childish at first, and it is a bit childish, but at the same time, it is super mature, so much more mature than other things that I have read. And the more you delve into it, the more adventures and the more arcs you go through, you'll find yourself just sometimes nearly crying, sometimes really reflecting on the messages that this manga has. We go from slavery to honor, family. There are so many things that you would expect a manga to explore, but then others that are completely groundbreaking or almost like a wrecking ball coming into you that you did not see coming, and they're all surprise you by the positive. I mean, like I said, the feels will be felt reading this manga. There were several arcs that really hit your heartstrings hard, and you see yourself really loving all of the characters. For me, I'm currently on volume 80, which is the end of the Dressrosa arc, starting of Zoe arc. So just so you have a more or less where I'm sitting at. It's been great so far. The Dressrosa arc was a long arc, but I mean, compared with the anime, which I have seen, like it was short compared to with the anime, because the anime went for ages. And now I understand that even the arc itself was quite long, so of course the anime always prolongs it quite a bit. But I'm still loving every single volume that I read. Of course, some are better than the others, but none of them feel too fillery in the sense that there's just story for the sake of story and not really moving along with the plot. No, everything moves along, and the character moments, character arcs are all beautifully done, and they all wrap themselves in each arc. So really good work. I think currently there are 113 volumes, so I'm slowly inching towards the more actual arcs, which I have stopped watching the anime when they were in Egghead Island, so I'm still a bit behind, but very keen to catch up. Regarding scores, it's a bit hard to evaluate a manga by these terms because mangas, usually on Goodreads, they're on each volume, and one volume doesn't really correspond with an arc. It's several volumes that comprise an arc. So looking at the scores of a specific volume can be a bit weird, but what I'll just say is that overall, throughout the 80 volumes that I've read, I would say the average is probably above a 4.5, with a lot of these volumes having really high scores. And for me, it's pretty much the same. Of course, there are some volumes that go maybe for a 4, 4.2, but there are a lot of volumes that give a 5. And you see that on my yearly reviews when I go through the books that I've read throughout the year. A lot of the 5s that I have are manga volumes. But then again, I understand that this can be a big commitment. I mean, I'm really asking you to read 100 and almost 20 volumes because of the theme of this story. So I understand if that might not be your first option. So maybe let's explore a second suggestion. And my second suggestion will also be a bit weird. If you want a One Piece inspired story, but I would say more mature, with more magic, more the fantastical elements into it, and in prose instead of painted art, then I think you should read the 3rd volume of Lord of the Mysteries. Now, of course, for you to read the 3rd volume, you have to read the first 2, which can be a lot just so you can reach a part where there's nautical fantasy. But let me go back a bit. What is Lord of the Mysteries? Well, Lord of the Mysteries is a Chinese web novel written by Aiqian Shui de Wuzhe, or Cuttlefish That Loves Diving. It's a story where we follow our main protagonist, who is called Joe, and he transmigrates into this fantastical world that is very steampunk Victorian era, and it's a world where gods and magic exist, and you can drink potions to gain powers. So this is a very brief, very general synopsis. It doesn't really sound very nautical, and in the first 2 volumes it isn't whatsoever. But, and this will be a tiny bit of a spoiler, in the 3rd novel our main protagonist does venture into the sea, and the whole volume is spent traveling in ships, going between islands, things like that. I haven't said this yet, but I have finished the 3rd volume and am preparing a review for that. But yeah, just wait a bit for that part. What I can say is that I thoroughly enjoyed this volume, mostly exactly because of the different setting. It felt like a breath of fresh air. It was new and it was different from all the other parts of the story that had happened. And at the same time, it was fun to enjoy this nautical fantasy aspect of it. But this is not a review of the volume. For that, you'll have to wait, probably for next week. What I just wanted to say about this is that it's well written, it has a lot of nautical themes to it. I mean, you have ships, you have islands, you have a lot of water, and a lot of monsters in the sea. I think, again, if you've read One Piece, you will definitely make some connections between some aspects of this story and this famous manga, which in my opinion, it makes it more fun. I think you see those connections, those kind of Easter eggs, and imagine like what inspired the author of Lord of the Mysteries to create something like that. And of course, this story still incorporates a lot of different plot lines, a great magic system, many character interactions that will leave you intrigued and wanting to know more. The details about this web novel, it is finished. It has 8 volumes, finished back in 2021 if I'm not mistaken, and the first 3 volumes are the biggest. So yeah, it is a big commitment if you decide to read it, but from my experience it is worth. I mean, I know, again, Goodreads is not the best platform to judge web novels because not a lot of web novels are there. Not a lot of people that read web novels go to Goodreads to search for it. But the scores of these 3 first volumes are 4.56, 4.62, and 4.67. Really good scores, really high. And my personal scores, which I have given in reviews here on the channel that you can check out, are also not low at all. The first one is 4.4, the second 4.6, and the third, you'll have to wait for next week to know. But then again, like I said for One Piece, I understand if people don't really want to read 2 volumes of a web novel just so they can get to the third, to get that experience of the nautical fantasy. And if that is your case, don't worry, we still have 2 other suggestions, and let's move on to that third one, and maybe that will be the best one for you. So the third option is a trilogy itself. The whole trilogy is nautical, so you don't have to read anything before to reach this and have the nautical fantasy whatsoever. And the trilogy is called the Tide Child Trilogy, starting with The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. The books in the trilogy are Bone Ships, Call of the Bone Ships, and The Bone Ships Wake. They were initially published in 2019, 2020, and 2021. So all of them are fairly recent. And I think this is the most nautical fantasy you'll have, both from my video and from a lot of the fantasy out there. This is a nautical fantasy where ships are made of bones from these creatures that they call dragons. However, these dragons have kind of disappeared from the world a long time ago, and therefore they no longer can make new ships. And the ships that they have are kind of getting old and rotting away. Some are becoming really bad. There are battles, they lose some of the ships, or the ships get destroyed. So their resources kind of running out, and they don't know what they're going to do. Their society is shifting because of it until they see another one of these dragons. And therefore the rush to get to it, to get the bones, starts, and that's part of the premise that starts this story. This is, again, oversimplifying. There is a lot more into this story, but you get the gist, right? So I have read the 3 books. I have reviewed every single one of them here on the channel. You can check out through the thumbnails or the cards up above and see in more detail what I think of each book in regards to plot, characters, world building, etc. But what I can say is that this was a trilogy that surprised me on the positive side. I really didn't know much about this trilogy. I hadn't read anything from that author before, and so when I started, I didn't know what to expect. I was a bit confused with the world building at the start because there's a lot of new and different concepts to integrate. But the more I delved into it, the more I felt engrossed, and the characters started growing on me, and I started liking the whole crew feeling that the book and the whole trilogy has. I think it's one of those trilogies where with each new book, the series just improves and keeps improving. You can see the author improve his craft, not only in terms of the story, but especially characters and the writing style. I think improved a lot throughout the series. So I think if you want a nautical fantasy with maybe a bit more emphasis on that crew feeling, the characters within a crew, but still with a cool world building with interesting concepts that you don't see that often, then this might be the trilogy for you. On Goodreads, the scores for these 3 books are 4.03, 4.38, and 4.48. As you can see, the first book has a lower score, probably because of its weirdness, because it's so different from what people usually read, and therefore a lot of them go into it not really knowing what to expect, but they get weirded out, they don't read anymore, give low scores. Maybe that's why. And a similar thing happened to me, except that I just continued reading, and therefore I enjoyed the 2 other volumes a lot more. Because I mean, my scores were quite similar. The first book I gave a score of 4, the second one I gave a score of 4.4, and the third one I gave a score of 4.6. So as you can see, it kept improving throughout the trilogy, except the first book was not as good, but then it got a big jump. I think R.J. Barker wrote a nautical world that was really original, really good, and it really integrates the reader to feel like they're part of the crew of the Type Child. And now we have my final suggestion, which is the one that I think involves the least commitment possible, which is a standalone book. But I mean, if you have this much commitment issues, maybe you need to go see someone, because I mean, you can commit to 3 books, right? That's not that much. But anyways, if you have one book to read and you want one single nautical fantasy book, I would recommend Isles of the Emberdark by Brandon Sanderson. Like I said, this is a standalone novel. It's part of the Cosmere universe by Brandon Sanderson, which is the universe that he has created with several stories that somehow connect with each other. Not always, but sometimes, and they have all these connections. Sometimes some characters might belong to other worlds, things like that. This book was released this year, so it's the most recent of them all. I mean, not if we take into account the current volumes of One Piece that are still being released. And this novel is an expansion on a short story that Brandon Sanderson wrote a while ago called Sixth of the Dusk. I don't want to reveal too much because of spoilers, but what I'll say is that this focuses on a character who is kind of like a guardian of an island, and he's grown being that guardian, is used to being that guardian, but with the industrialization of the world, his role starts becoming obsolete, and it's a lot about how he integrates himself into society, whilst at the same time we have a second part of the story, completely different, that is also very nautical, but in a more science fiction setting. It is a great novel, like, I mean, all of Brandon Sanderson's novels are. I think the characters are great, the world building is top-notch as well. The only thing is the plot might be towards a bit of the simple side, let's say. But I mean, I don't think it's anything so simple that you'll get bored. Maybe sometimes it will be a bit predictable, but there will still be a lot of innovative parts that you will not see coming. I gave this novel a 4.6 out of 5 on my channel, which also has a review you can check out through the thumbnail, card, whatsoever. But on Goodreads, this book has a score of 4.54 out of 5. So as you can see, both our scores are pretty similar. They're both very high. For a standalone, it's really good as well. The only caveat that I have about this book is if you are one of those people that needs to know all the single details that connect different novels, all the Easter eggs, you have to get them at first read. And maybe this is not the best book because there are quite a few Easter eggs that involve a lot of other Brandon Sanderson books. But if you don't really care about that, and if you enjoy actually taking notice of those on your reread, then I would definitely recommend it. It's simple. I think you don't really need to know everything about the Easter eggs. I didn't, and I still thoroughly enjoyed it. So I would say this is probably the one that requires least commitment because you don't actually need to read any Cosmere novels to enjoy this story. And that actually leads us to the end of this recommendation video. What do you think? Have you read any of these options? Have you not? Do you have other options like I mentioned at the start of the video? Just comment down below. Put the list of your nautical fantasy or nautical science fiction, even though I'm not sure if that's really a thing. I mean, all spaceships are ships, but it's not really the same. It doesn't have the same nautical feel. Unless you're actually talking about a crew, then you kind of have like The Expanse, for example, but that's going in too far. Maybe we should do a nautical science fiction recommendation video, maybe for another time. For now, yeah, if you're new, don't forget, subscribe, like the content, and I shall be seeing you on Thursdays and Sundays, okay? See you soon.